Hey, what's going on, guys, and welcome back to another Fallout 4 Mods Weekly, the show where we take a look at some of the really cool and interesting mods to come out in the past week for Fallout 4. And this week, we've got some really cool stuff to look at. We have our standard assortment of weapon mods, but also some really cool and interesting gameplay mods that are very, very different. As always, if you want to try any of the mods that will be featured in today's video, they will all be linked down in the description below, along with Xbox links if there are any available. Without further ado, let's go ahead and get started with the first mod of this week, which is the Car Alarm mod by Elzee. This mod's a very simple one. It does exactly what it says in the title. It adds alarms to cars. Now, that doesn't seem like a really huge deal, but it's actually a pretty cool gameplay element, especially if you're playing a stealth character. The idea is that if a vehicle gets damaged or maybe hears a loud noise nearby, it will set off a car alarm. For some vehicles that are still nearly mint, the car alarm will be intact, but for other cars that are a little bit more destroyed, they will not. Now, the purpose of these car alarms in terms of gameplay is that it can actually distract enemies. So if you have not yet completely revealed yourself and you are playing a little bit stealthy, if you shoot one of these cars, it will set off the car alarm and potentially the enemy is going to go and investigate. So that's pretty cool and a neat way to distract enemies. We don't really have anything like that in the vanilla game. Other games with stealth mechanics like Far Cry have the ability to throw rocks or trigger off other sound items, and now we have that ability in Fallout 4, and it's pretty neat. In my testing, this doesn't work 100% of the time. Either you trying to set off the car alarm is going to fully give away your position, or the enemy just doesn't really seem to care because the stealth mechanics in Fallout 4 are a little bit weird. They just don't care if they're not in combat. But if you're in that sort of caution stage where the enemy is already searching for you, they just don't know where you are yet, they do seem to pick up on the car alarms a lot of the time. What's really interesting is how surprisingly realistic the car alarms are. If you shoot a car, it will obviously set off the alarm, but if a car gets destroyed or there's an explosion nearby, it'll usually set off car alarms in the immediate area, which I think is really funny. Once you set off one of these car alarms, it will last for about 30 seconds. It depends on which car alarm plays. It is random. There are a few different alarm sounds that can potentially play, or you can destroy the vehicle and that will obviously turn off the alarm, though it will kind of give away that stealthy presence you were going for. Now, for the purposes of the review, so you can actually hear this stuff, I'll go ahead and let some footage play without my commentary so you can hear the car alarms and determine if this is something you want in your load order. Now, the next mod we're checking out is the first of this week's weapon mods, and that is the Advanced Battle Rifle by Brainstormepilog. The Advanced Battle Rifle is going to be a recreation of Fallout 76's Screaming Eagle Rifle, which, for those who aren't aware, is essentially like the Fallout New Vegas service rifle, and an AR-10 had a weird little baby. And that baby occasionally liked to cosplay as the Marksman Carbine, also from New Vegas. In this mod, it's going to have access to some really cool retro parts and some pseudo-modern designs, though nothing too crazy. Everything that has pretty much appeared in a Fallout game at some point. It's an actually really good take on the Screaming Eagle Rifle. Again, I'm not entirely sure what this is really supposed to be, as again, it is sort of like an AR-10, though it does have a charging handle on the side, which is a pretty interesting design, though that's how it was in New Vegas, so it's definitely a very Fallout weapon. It's not going to be a perfect recreation of any sort of real-world rifle, but I think it fits Fallout very, very well, and with the modifications you can equip over at the weapons workbench, it altogether makes for a really awesome weapon. I don't have too many complaints with it. This weapon does come with custom animations, and for those of you who are wondering why they aren't just AR-10 animations, it's because the author was really trying to recreate the 76 Screaming Eagle, and that's how the weapon functions. Now, as far as the animations go, they are pretty nice. The reload is perfectly fine. My only complaint with them is that the firing animations, specifically when aiming down sights, are a little rough. It's not too bad in full auto, but the semi-auto version of this weapon, when you're trying to use iron sights, it's a little odd. The animations feel just a tad bit stiff to me. There's not a lot of horizontal movement. It looks almost like animations out of New Vegas, which for some of you may not be a big deal. For me, it's pretty minor, but it is something to note. One part that is a big plus side for, I'm sure, a lot of you is that this weapon does come with a ton of skins over at the weapons workbench to help you customize this thing. Some of them are just basic camos, others are faction skins. For the non-joinable factions, those will be unlocked right off the bat, but for any faction you can join in the game, you have to join that faction for the skin to unlock. Now, before you download this, it is important to note this is based off the AR-10. This isn't a service rifle, so this thing is not 5.56. This is a 308 weapon. This is intended to be used at long distances, boasting heavy damage. And it is found a little bit later in the game. That being said, this thing does feature leveled list integration, and it has some pretty unique leveled lists. It actually has different levels it'll start spawning on different factions. At level 15, you'll be able to start buying this thing or finding it on legendary drops and the occasional Brotherhood of Steel Soldier. After level 20 is when it starts appearing on gunner bosses. Level 25, it will start appearing on members of the Minutemen. Level 35, it'll start appearing on regular gunners to make them a little bit more difficult in the late game. And then at level 45, it'll start appearing on raider bosses. So it's pretty cool. It'll be found on more advanced factions earlier on, and then it'll start making its way around later in the game, which I think is a pretty neat idea. Altogether, this weapon is a nice little package, and it makes for a really cool addition to just about any load order. It has a mismatch of not only retro, but some semi-modern parts. The only downside to this thing is that it has a pretty massive file size, and that's because of all of those skins added in this mod. If you get the highest resolution, this thing is over 1.3 gigs. The smallest version is around 300 megabytes. Personally, I would kind of like to see a version without any of the skins that would severely reduce the file size and still add a really cool weapon into the game, but that's just my opinion. Before we move on to the next mod, let's go ahead and show off the custom animations and the firing sound so you can determine if those are good enough for you and your load order. Now, the next mod we're checking out is a very interesting one, and it's where the title of this video comes from. We have the Rideable Deathclaw mod by Ghost. This mod is going to add a new Deathclaw into the game who functions as a companion and a mount, and his name is Shreddy. Other open world games have different ways to travel their maps. Grand Theft Auto has cars, Skyrim has horses, but Fallout, you were just kinda out of luck. But now you have a Deathclaw, a very fitting mount for Fallout, comes complete with his own custom saddle, and you can ride him, and he functions as a mount. He's faster than you, and he can travel pretty great distances, and he even has combat functionality, which I was pretty surprised to see. If you want to get your hands on this guy, he's actually found right above Abernathy Farm and right below Red Rocket, right under the Concord Water Tower. Once you find the guy, you can simply ride him and he is yours. And once he is your companion, you can even activate a quest in case you ever need to find him or call him to your side using an aid item. Now, this is going to require the script extender, so you're probably not ever going to see this mod on Xbox, and even still, this mod is a little buggy. It's not terrible or anything, but, you know, you were never meant to ride Deathclaws in Fallout 4, so there are some small, weird things that happen with this mod. The combat functionality is definitely one of the more interesting parts of this thing. The Deathclaw will essentially act on its own every time you enter combat. So even if you're riding him, if you put yourself in a group of enemies, the Deathclaw will go into autopilot and start attacking them. But you can also control him. It's really up to you. So while you're in combat, he will have the ability to use melee attacks that you can trigger by attacking, which is pretty cool. But if you don't attack anything, he will start attacking to defend himself. The only thing that I've ever had issues with this mod is that sometimes the attacks don't quite register. So whenever he starts going into autopilot and I start initiating melee, sometimes it won't actually connect with the enemies until I start moving around again so that I'm in full control. It's a really weird small thing that you just kind of pick up as you play with the mod. Another weird thing is occasionally he will stop and start, so the movement is a little janky, but that's only occasionally. 90% of the time he works perfectly fine, and you can even sprint with him at some pretty high speeds. On top of that, you can even open up this guy's inventory, and he has a pretty big carrying capacity to store all of your goods, so he makes for a really cool mount and companion, and definitely a unique one. It's not something that's super balanced, but he is a really cool mount, and if you're looking for a character who has the ability to ride a Deathclaw, this is a pretty cool addition to your game. Now, next up, we have another weapon mod, and that is the 40 caliber Autoloader pistol by micalov. That's right, the King of Nif Bashes is back with a brand new vanilla asset-based weapon mod. This mod is going to heavily tweak the deliverer meshes to make a brand new lore-friendly pistol in 40 caliber. Again, this is micalov, and since we're using a custom ammo type, you know this thing is going to require munitions. It would be kind of stupid to download a 40 caliber pistol mod and not use munitions for the 40 caliber ammo. But in case you want that for whatever reason, you can download a non-munitions version, which will just use 10mm instead. Now, I did mention this uses pretty much all deliverer assets, but they have been heavily modified to design a totally new pistol. In my opinion, the silhouette of this thing looks a bit like the Jericho pistol by IWI, also known as the Baby Deagle. And I have to say, I really like this thing. It does use custom firing sounds from Far Harbor, and it does use the deliverer animation set, so any deliverer animation mods you download can be used with this weapon. I'm currently using War Daddies, and they look very, very nice in my opinion. The thing comes complete with its own custom attachments over at the weapons workbench and even a rechamber to 9mm. If you want to get your hands on this weapon, it is added to the level list and can be found pretty much anywhere you might find a 10mm pistol. Altogether, this is a pretty nice little pistol mod, very lore friendly, and has a nice vanilla based aesthetic. One huge plus with this mod is if you do like it, it is only mere kilobytes because it uses all vanilla assets that have been tweaked. So it's very, very small and takes up no file space, so it's perfect for Xbox users. Sadly, at the time of recording this, it is not currently on Xbox, but I have a feeling it's going to make its way over there very, very soon, so stay tuned for that. While this weapon doesn't feature custom animations, I'm going to go ahead and show it off with War Daddy so you can see how compatible it is and also show off those custom firing sounds. And finally, that's going to take us to the last mod of this week, which is AnotherOne's SKS Type 56 by AnotherOne, also known as RetroPaladin. This is going to add a brand new SKS into the game, complete with beautiful custom animations. Matter of fact, a lot of custom animations, different animations for each magazine type, which is very important for the SKS as it features not only internal magazines, but also a few different types of external detachable magazines, each with their own custom animation. This mod does come with a ton of additional files, including scripted leveled list injection and tactical reload support. Normally, I don't really care about trying to get tactical reload, but for this weapon in particular, having it is very, very nice, especially for the internal magazine with that stripper clip reload. That way you're not magically inserting more and more rounds that there just isn't space for. By default, if you want to get your hands on this weapon, it is not added to the leveled list unless you download that additional patch, but if you do, there will be scripted level list injection, so it will spawn out in the world on enemies. Now, if you don't download that, the only way to get your hands on this weapon is to find one of two versions. The basic version of the weapon can be found at the United States Air Force Satellite Station, or you can find the unique version of this weapon, which can be found in the Yangtze submarine. This is a very special communist version of the weapon, so keep an eye out for that. I won't spoil it for you, but it's pretty funny. A couple small notes about this weapon that are very, very cool. This thing does feature an ESLified ESP, meaning that it does not take up a plug-in space in your load order. And I mentioned that it did have custom animations. It also has power armor animations, which is something that a lot of mods don't have. So that's pretty cool, so that it's usable for pretty much anybody's playstyle. If you're a fan of the SKS, this is definitely one of the nicest ones out on the Nexus right now, so I highly recommend picking it up. The last thing I want to do is show off the custom animations and custom sounds for this weapon, and then we'll go ahead and wrap up this video. So yeah, guys, that is Mods Weekly number 104. Tons of really, really cool mods this week. I highly recommend every single one. Again, if you want to try any of these, they will be linked down in the description below. With that, I hope you guys enjoyed the video. If you did, don't forget to drop a rating as it really helps out the channel, and consider subscribing if you haven't already for more videos just like this. New Mods Weekly every single Saturday. One small piece of business before we go, I did put out a poll that some of you may have seen asking about upload scheduling. I used to do daily uploads and then I kind of played with doing them less often as my life got pretty busy, and lately we've been doing once a week uploads. So I gauged what you guys thought about that, and most of you seem to want 2 or 3 videos a week, which is exactly what I actually want to do, so that's pretty cool. I'll be doing Mods Weeklies every Saturday, and I'm planning to do a mod update series every Wednesday to show off anything that I've worked on mod-wise for for that week. That's going to help keep me motivated to show off what I've been doing and help to motivate me to make more stuff. So I'll be showing off not only updates on the attachment pack, but some other stuff I've been working on the side. There's actually a new weapon mod I've been working on that not too many people know about yet, so I can't wait to show that off. So stay tuned for that. Starting sometime in the next couple weeks, I'll be doing that series on Wednesdays. And again, always every Saturday, we will have a Mods Weekly episode. So that'll be the new schedule. I hope you guys enjoy it. If you have any suggestions, feel free to leave them down in the comments, and I'll be sure to keep you guys informed if anything ever changes. One last thing before we go, I'd like to make a big shout out to all of my patrons for supporting every single video. And of course, a very special thank you to Backbone, Danny, Freedom, Glasma, Damien, Indecisive Wolf, Logan Rigmaiden, Lord Toast, Miker Han, Moonlit Gamer, Oscar, Scott, Sterling, Timmy76, Youth RC, and Voider for joining that Tier 3 Patreon membership. If you'd like to support the channel over on Patreon, you can do so using the link down in the description, but it is completely optional. Thanks again for watching, guys, and I hope to see you all in the next one. Peace!